So we had a client that came to me a few years ago that was in some difficulty at the time, in particular with HMRC and owing taxes. But when you looked under the bonnet, so to speak, you can see there was a lot more fundamentally wrong in terms of finances and cash flow, and a lot of those issues had caused the issues with the tax because they weren't able to pay it. So really but the underlying business was really good. It had some real big clients, good recurring revenues, and you could see the potential for that. Good staff, had a real low turnover of staff for an industry where there's quite a high turnover. People really wanted to work there. People would apply to work there even if you weren't even advertising for jobs. There was a real good culture there. But the business owner, in their own admission, has said, well, you know, I can do what I'm doing now, the creative side, and I can create a great culture, but actually running a business and the finance side, I've not got a clue, and that's what I need help with. And it just goes to show that, yeah, you can have a great business idea, be brilliant at what you do, but if you don't manage the finances, you've not got anything. It can just all fall apart. And you know, years and years of graft and sweat can just disappear if you've not got a good fiscal control in. And ultimately, that's what business is about. You're all there to make money, so if you want to make money, you've got to control the money. No matter how good a businessman you are, how good at what you do, or how good your service is, how good your product is. And it's not just a story for this client, it's another client that we had. A similar situation, had great sales, doing, you know, close to £4 million turnover within a few years, but faced administration because I've not been able to manage the bottom line, costs, cash, putting all those controls in. But this client, in terms of what we did for them, so first of all was to try and keep HMRC away from the door, because they were threatening winding up orders. They were threatening to you know, put the company into administration for the liability, and how we did that was just keeping an open dialogue. What didn't help was he would bury his head in the sand and wouldn't speak to HMRC, so they would phone, they would chase, and just ignoring it is just the worst thing you can do in any situation with HMRC. I always advocate having an open conversation with them. If you're struggling to meet your VAT payments or your tax pays or anything, always try and give them a bit of a heads up. And normally they will work with you. Where they get quite aggressive is where you ignore them or you're persistently not paying and late and things like that. But if you keep an open dialogue with them, they're pretty good. And you know, it's not in their interest to wind the company up. It's their interest to keep the company going because they get more tax then. So there's no benefit for them to doing that. So we opened dialogue with HMRC. Questions just from experience of what they look for. They say, well, okay, you want to negotiate some payment plan, what do you propose, what's your cash flow forecast, what do you think you're going to do, when can you pay it? So we had to do all that. We had to prepare you know, forecast, cash flow forecast, business plan, look at the numbers, where it was expected to go, what new customers we could get in, where we could reduce some costs, and then we presented that plan to HMRC, and I mean, we were talking, you know, over £250,000 worth of debt, and we managed to get a payment plan with them on the basis of that we've got the cash flow forecast and this is what we can afford, and we were very open book with them. But before we could even go approach them, we had to fix everything behind the scenes. So putting an accounting system was the first job, and then doing accurate management accounts, so we could able to say, well, if it was questioned about the forecast, you could say, well, here's the evidence that we've done what we've done, and this is how we can do it, and this is where the growth is. So it needed all that in place, and the result of that was that we got an 18-month payment plan, which is just kind of unheard of. You know, they'll do 6, most 12 if you're really lucky. So that really helped the business in terms of cash flow, so we were able to breathe again with that. Then in terms of other things, now we had full kind of visibility of finances, we could assess profitability on certain clients, so we knew that, all right, that was the highest turnover client, but it's actually the worst one for profit. We're spending way too much time on it. We're burning up a lot of hours, and yes, it brings us the most money top line, but it doesn't bring us the most margin. Whereas some of them where there were kind of a lower turnover but very low intensive work was needed, so your margin. So when you've got that visibility, you can now look at, well, should we not focus on those big ones? Let's look at those ones that are most profitable, and then we target our market. So suddenly, just having that financial visibility on things changes the mindset of saying, well, not chasing the biggest clients, not chasing the biggest names, not chasing the biggest turnover, because from what we look at history in terms of the financial information, you actually, you maybe good PR. So strategically, it might be worth still getting them, but historically, you were over servicing them and not making as much money. So that's why you get in the situation why you've got them, because you can't generate enough surplus cash to pay your bills because you're over servicing these bigger clients. But naturally, as you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking, well, it's great to have this big high street name as opposed to Joe Blogs, but I'm making more money. But you never thought like that until you've got the financial clarity of saying, well, actually I make more money off Joe Blogs. So there's an old saying which my boss used to say to me, turnover's vanity, profit's sanity, but cash is the reality. So if you make more cash off the lower turnover clients, then so that's changed kind of the strategy a bit of the business, and was able to sort of generate a lot more cash. And then the next stage was that they wanted to grow the business, so we looked at funding and whether go down debt or equity and what are the options. So we discussed the benefits of both and the pros and cons, and it was decided that equity would be the better path for them on the basis as to what that equity could bring and the type of partner we get in, because it wasn't just about the money, whereas debt would just be, well, there's a lot of cash and you've got to pay it back every month, whereas the equity side was, well, yeah, we haven't got the risk of having to find a monthly payment, but also the partner that we choose will help grow the business and do that. So to cut a long story short with that, we went down the VC route, the venture capitalist route, and started the fundraise. Now, what was important to have that fundraise is have a good solid financial base to be able to present to investors. Notwithstanding that it had to be a good business in terms of what they do and the service. If the service is crap, it didn't really matter what the finances were. The service and what they deliver had to be good, and it was. But then the underlying profitability of the company had to be good as well. And going out to market for that, you had to demonstrate that you've got those good controls and that you can demonstrate the finances. Because when we've gone through the due diligence process, when questions are asked about finance and forecasting and different scenarios, we were able to produce that straight away for them, and that gives the VC a lot of comfort that actually they do know the numbers. Now, if he was doing that on his own, he wouldn't be able to do that. So I don't think anyone would have really looked at the business, even though they would have been on the face of it, had these great super customers and you can do a great brand piece of work and sell yourself. When they look under the bonnet and see, well, actually it's not really anything there. So the fact that we were involved and I was involved in getting that, I think that really helped with the fundraise, and we managed to raise the money in the last few months for them, and now it's just going to go on and be the company that he wanted to be and grow it, and he's got the right partner in and they've got the investment now to push on. But I think the key thing out of that was that all those issues which we come across the first stage when he engaged us, he wouldn't have never been able to get any investment for it. Not a thing. No matter how good it looked on the face of it, an investor going in and saying there's $250,000 HMRC debt would just scare them, and they would walk away. So we were able to manage that and be able to put in the good reporting processes so investors could see straight away what the numbers were, And also you have to differentiate yourself, because in the market there was loads of companies like that. So and there's loads of companies I see that don't have that good finance structure in place, and on the face of it they may look good in terms of the market perception and the brand, but you know they're not going to get the investment because they just haven't got that structure. Whereas with this client they had it, and I do believe strongly that's what got this deal over the line.